Hey everybody, today we're drawing Siren Head. All right, to begin our Siren Head drawing, we're going to start with a very light pencil sketch. Imagine that the paper was split in half. Just to the left of that is where we'll start with the chest of Siren Head, which is this oval that's tilted this way. We're drawing very lightly because some of these lines are going to need to be erased. These are just guidelines to start. Now let's draw a neck that droops down, and it will be aiming its siren in this direction. And we branch this off like a triangle, but make it look like a cone, three-dimensional, by adding this oval on the end. Next, let's branch the other siren off in that direction, coming off the side, and put a significant curve on the end there. We can go ahead and put a little gross tongue coming out of this one. Now we're going to add details and teeth and lots of other details later. That comes in a later stage. Right now we're just getting the basics. Now let's add this skinny stomach underneath that's curved, and it comes down to this pelvis, which we want to curve up for the hip bones. Maybe that's a little too much. You want it about the same width as some shoulders. The same width as, we haven't done the shoulders yet, so about the same width as the edge of the ribs. And curve the bottom as well. Now we do these long legs. So what you're learning here is actually basic skeletal structure, even of humans. The proportions and the size are off, but if you were to look into the skeleton of a human, you'll notice rib cage, spine, pelvis, long, singular upper leg bone here. We want to bring this down really far, and it gets thicker where the knee is. And I'm going to add this big bend here. We'll start with the single bone. Later we can do it now. We'll add, let's make that skinnier than this upper bone. This is going to be skinny lower leg bone that is right next to another very skinny lower leg bone. And then add this foot and just put some long toes coming off of it. Now, on this side, we're going to have this leg coming forward at a steeper angle. Again, make it wider at the knee. And you want to check to make sure that the new leg is going to be about the same size as the previous one. Doesn't need to be exact, but check with your fingers, and this upper leg should be the same as that upper leg in terms of size. Then we're going to drop this down. 2 lower leg bones, very skinny. And then for this foot, let's not make it go down quite as low as this one, because this foot is closer to us, so it's going to be further down on the page. To create a little bit of perspective, we want to make this one a little bit higher up on the page. In fact, I'm going to raise it even more. I'm going to bring it down at a steep angle, this trapezoid shape, and then it bends And then you add just a few long, creepy toes. You won't really see all of them at this angle, so you don't have to draw all of them. All right, now let's do the arms. We'll do one arm coming this direction, reaching for its next victim. Let's add the shoulders first. Just some little curved shapes at the top. Off of the shoulder, we'll add a very long arm bone that's going to be very similar to this femur, to this upper leg bone here. Drop it down. In fact, you really want to make it about the same size. Make it larger so it bulges on the end, around the elbow. And then, again, we have two, just like the legs, we have two skinny bones that come off of that. And we'll have this big arm reaching out, this big hand. So let's do a thumb. And then let's do the index finger, which is going to be very similar to the thumb, but longer. And I'm going to split it into 3 parts. So a good tip is to use your own hand as a reference when drawing hands. The difference with Siren Head is we're going to make the fingers longer. But if I am making a pose like this, I actually see that it looks a little weird if I bend my thumb this much. So I'm going to actually change the tip of that thumb to match more what I'm seeing here if it's reaching out. And look, my thumb goes more straight like this. And then this finger, look at that, is long and curved. And I'm just going to make it extra long for Siren Head. Now what do you see? You see 1, 2, 3 other fingers poking out. Poking down. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to add 1, 2, and a little tiny pinky finger there. 3. So there is a great tip for when you're drawing hands. Just put your own hand in the pose and use it as a good reference. Next, let's draw this arm. We'll draw it going back almost to the corner of the page. And then it's going to be, let's have it coming towards us a little bit. So it's going to get thicker on the end. Now notice what I'm doing. First, I'm going to treat this part of the arm as just one big piece so I can get the angle right and get it foreshortening, which means it's going to be bigger as it comes towards us. And later I'll split this into the 2 different bones. Now let's get this 3-dimensional looking hand. We'll draw someone trapped in it. 2 lines here, and then angle it off like that. Next, bring the line straight across here. We're going to draw it sort of like a box or more of a prism, you'll see. Angle these lines straight to the right, and then connect them. And then let's come to this corner and bring it back to the wrist. So look at that. Very boxy looking hand now, but we're going to chisel away at this, add some more details to make it look more like a hand. So come to the top and wrap this thumb around. Let's go ahead and erase that separation between the wrist and the hand. Now let's add some fingers, just with some curved lines. Just curves up into, actually it won't even do that. It's going to stop right at this line. And these are just very slight curves. Even if you did straight lines, it would still look good. Now I'm just going to add some curves at the end of these fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I gave the guy 6 fingers, including the thumb. That's not right. So all you need is 1, 2, 3, and then the bottom line of that shape. There we go. So count the fingers. Should be 4 here plus the thumb. Suppose, yeah, maybe some sort of mutant Siren Head would have 6 fingers, but not the one I know. Now let's put a little person trapped in here. Just a basic shape here, essentially a rectangle. We can draw character's hand down here. You don't really need details at this point or at any point for this character because he's so far away. Do a little arm, or you could do whatever pose you want. Maybe he's screaming, waving his hands around, and I'm putting him facing the other way so we can't see his face. You could turn him this way, put a little face on there. I doubt it would be a smiley face. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is with these 2 parts of the arm here, I'm going to go ahead and add that split in here. There we go. You probably don't want it so straight. We want a little bit of a curve, just like we see here. In fact, it could be sort of a random curve, would make it look better. It doesn't need to look just like mine. Just add some little tiny bumps that you hardly notice or some little curves in there, and it'll make it look much more realistic. Basic shapes are done. We've done some detail over here, and now let's add more detail to the whole creature. Let's start with the chest and the ribs. First, let's smooth some of this out, adding some curves under there for the armpits. And let's make this look more like ribs. So the way we'll do this is create a little indentation in the middle at the bottom. And now at this stage, I'm pressing harder and darker with the pencil so we can start to see more of the final details. And then add some curves in here for the ribs. Collarbones at the top. Erase some of this that separated the shoulder from the ribs. And erase that to clear that up. Now, inside here, you'll have these weird, gross veins and strands coming down. So just do some squigglies and do some squigglies behind the squigglies. So some are in the background. And make sure you make the edge squiggly. We don't want it some super smooth straight edge there. Now the ribs, same thing. We don't want it smooth on the side. That's going to be everywhere on the body. So make some bumps on the edges here. And you can press harder so you see some of those details better. Widen the neck at the bottom. Create some little gaps in the muscle tissue there. Now let's zoom in on the mouth here and do these creepy teeth. First, I'm going to bring this out a little bit because the siren comes off the side, not exactly the end of the neck. So I want a little stump coming up at the top, and this comes down. Now let's darken this oval, and I'm going to make it so that the edges don't touch but come right around that oval. Now I'm going to add the teeth. On both sides, top and bottom. And usually looks nice when you add a mix of long and small, long and medium, vary the size. Now I'm going to do the gums. Little curves under each tooth. And I'm going to do some little strings of saliva hanging between the teeth and a little bit coming out. It's a little bit too much. Sometimes you put too many details. It doesn't look quite as good. So I'm going to erase just that one. I think that looks better. Now let's add some saliva up here too. Little teardrop shapes. And you want to try just doing a few. It doesn't take many, and change the size when you're doing drips or debris on any drawing, which means you have some medium and some tiny. So make them different sizes. Now, at this point, let's connect the legs to the hips. And we are at the point where we're going to go to some more advanced details now. So if you are a beginner artist, it'd be a great idea, if you'd like right now, to grab your black marker or Sharpie or ink pen and trace the outlines carefully and smoothly, and then begin coloring it. If you want to give it a shot and do some more advanced drawing techniques and some details, then watch this next part, and we'll add lots of the sinews and veins and muscle fibers on this creature. So one way I'll do this is by adding lots of very light scribbles, very light scribbles around the neck. We're going to do it with the arms, the legs as well. Maybe watch what I do first before you try. And we're curving them back and forth. Some go in the middle, some go below, some go above. It's very light. A lot of these are going to be erased. Some are longer and straighter, some are curvier. And let's even do some that, maybe one or two that really hang off a little lower than the others. Like these two. There. Now already you can see it's got a little more texture. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find some of the scribbles to make darker. And I'm going to find a scribble that goes above and then down. And I'm going to add another line on top so it's like a vein that wraps around. Now you need to imagine this in 3D space. If there's a vein wrapping around this neck, which is cylindrical, it's going to come down and then go behind the other side. So we won't see it disappear behind here, and then it's going to come out on top. Let's do it again, but we don't want to make it like a perfect pattern. So instead of coming down just like this did, let's add a little more length and some curves. Now it droops down below the neck, comes out the other side. Yours doesn't need to look just like mine. Maybe it goes there. Now we're not going to see it's behind the siren. And then let's just connect it to the end. Look at that. It's this big sinew or vein that wraps around this neck in the middle. Let's try it again with another one, but let's change the pattern a little bit. We don't want it to look exactly the same. You want it to look somewhat random. And you might come in and add a couple of them. So go ahead and try that again. You can follow along with me, or you can sort of create your own little veins and strings coming off. Some of them might split. There's some in the middle that don't come off of it. They just stay inside. Maybe some wrap around the siren. Down. The other side comes up. Now when you're doing it on the siren, you definitely want to make sure you curve these. I need to curve them a little more. That's too straight. And one thing that will help is if you put some very light lines that are very curved around this siren cone. Now look how much more 3D it looks. And so now when I add the veins, I'm going to do these curves that follow those lines, those guidelines I just added, which are called cross contour lines. They can be very helpful when you're doing three-dimensional shapes. I'm going to do some veins going down the siren as well. Might be a little too dark. Here's the thing when you're doing details. You want to make sure that the outline is darker than the details on the inside usually. So I'm going to lighten up by just very lightly erasing. Maybe draw some of them back. Some of those veins. So we want the outside edge of the siren to be darker. Let's do some lines here. Contour lines and just a couple little sinews. And just a little bit of texture on the inside. There we go. We're going to do the same thing, that same process, for the arms and the legs. You can do it to the level of detail that you want. I'm going really detailed. Even if you just add 1 or 2 veins or strings on an arm or a leg, that's better than nothing. So feel free to choose how many details you want to add to this, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and finish my pencil sketch, and you can too. Now, draw something in the corner that's about to be the next victim of Siren Head. I think I'll draw a little guy on a bench or something. Let's see what it becomes. First, let me draw this bench. He doesn't see him coming. You draw whatever you want. If you want to draw this, you can draw along with me. I'll have him just leaning forward. Maybe he's looking at his phone. You could draw a little stick figure there or a little cartoon figure or maybe yourself.